Which of these would entice you more? A tree frog that looks like it's trying to grab your face? Or this delightful magical frog with a wizard's hat on, shooting fire out of its fingertips? It's obviously the second one. I don't even know why I asked the question, but I do want to know why they got the original artwork so wrong. This is boring. The name tells me nothing. The tagline says, "Can you escape its slimy grasp?" even though you are the frog. And to top it off, the Sinclair user advert gives no real help either. A brilliant, multifaceted blast, cast and thinking game. Just say it's like Gauntlet. It's like Gauntlet. Here's the thing though, the older I get, the less I like Gauntlet. It was a game I played endlessly as a kid, but each time I try and go back to it, whether it's on the ZX Spectrum or the actual arcade cabinet itself, I slowly remember that I dislike almost everything about it. It's the slowly draining health, the messages that pop up constantly, the bland level layouts, the fact that you can shoot food and apparently make it inedible, even though there's absolutely no way you can tell me you wouldn't eat a roast chicken with an arrow in it. Gadzooks! It appears I have rendered this delicious poultry completely inedible. Just take the arrow out. Going back to Ranarama then, it's like Gauntlet by the way, this multifaceted blast, cast and thinking game is a very, very strange mix, and much like all the pre-release material, it's a really baffling game to get your head around, whether you read the manual or not. As much as I said it's like Gauntlet, it's sort of like Gauntlet, but it's also sort of like Frogger, and it's also sort of like Hero Quest. It's multifaceted. To deal with this multifaceted nonsense, you get 4.5 pages of instructions. That's far too much for me. Instructions should be 3 words at most, otherwise I get tired. I decided to focus in on the controls only. To fire an offense spell, press fire with a direction selected. To cast an effect spell, press fire with no direction selected. To activate a floor glyph, stand on the glyph, blah 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 blah, press left and right to slip, whatever. I had no idea what any of that meant, but I did work out how to shoot people, and this game is basically just Gauntlet, right? So I wandered about for a bit, I shot things, I got bored, and then I left it for a few days because I didn't want to play fake Gauntlet anymore. It was during this time I read the instructions properly and started to understand just what the game was actually getting at, although I did also have to watch a gameplay video just to really cement what's going on. Ranarama has a lot of layers, multiple layers. It's multi-faceted. Firstly, the combat. Straightforward enough. Hold down shoot, press a direction, bob's your frog. That's not all this shoot button does though. It also activates your effect spell, which initially begins as a see spell, something that reveals hidden doors. You'll have noticed by now that, unlike Gauntlet, your view of the map is obscured. There's a fog of war across the place, and rooms are only revealed once you enter them for the first time. Enemies, also, are only revealed when you're stood in the actual room. This makes exploration feel genuinely fun. Your goal here is to track down a load of warlocks and jump on their face, more on that in a minute, and being able to work out which rooms you have, or haven't been in, at a glance makes uncovering the map really breezy and, dare I say, exciting? Yes, I do dare say that. On the floor, you'll come across these glyphs. Some of them are pickups, like this one that blasts an entire room like a nuke, and some are basically a status screen or a map. It feels really odd to have these things littered about. They're things you'd expect to be assigned to a button, not a random tile on a floor, but hey ho, that's how the game is, deal with it. These status screen elements are important though, because as well as being really cumbersome to navigate, which isn't the important part, they also allow you to purchase new powers, of which there are 4 categories, each with multiple spells in them. The easiest way to explain this is high level power equals gooder than lower level power. You can upgrade your main power level, your offensive, your defensive, and your effect spells using runes which you gain from jumping on a warlock's face. Again, more on that in a minute. Your base power level acts as a sort of life bar, but also an engine. Because if you upgrade your other stuff before your base power level, your energy will drain rapidly because your frog magic doesn't have enough frog magic engine power to sustain it. Does that make sense? It probably doesn't. It's quite hard to explain. Look, here's a diagram. Now, one thing to note is that this base power, once depleted, will turn you mortal unless you can recast the power spell. Think of it as having an extra life in a way, and you can only have one extra life, but you can also restore that extra life, and if you die without the extra life, you're dead. That's sort of how it works. Look, this is not an easy game to explain, and it's no wonder the manual is such a heavy read, because no matter which way I try and describe it, it sounds like I've been drinking pints of acid. Basically, there's a lot of stuff going on. Upgrading your spells is key to success, and to upgrade your spells you need runes, and to get runes you need to jump on a warlock's face. More on that now. I didn't read the part of the instructions that said you have to jump on the warlock, so for a while I was trying to shoot the warlocks and getting absolutely nowhere. That would seem to be the obvious thing, right? Shoot them. No? Oh, jump on them. Jump on them and then solve a word puzzle by swapping letters to spell Ranarama. I had difficulty explaining things that were happening before this point. I'm not even going to attempt to explain what's happening at this point. This is just how the game is. You will accept it. Let's summarize then. You are a magic frog. You need to jump on warlock faces. You need to power up your frog magic engine so you can support your magic frog weapons. It's a bit like Gauntlet. Here's the thing though, having put quite a bit of time into Ranarama now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and annoy everyone by saying that this game, this one with the very confusing instructions, is more fun than Gauntlet, at least for the solo player. And before you come waltzing in here with your angry voices, let me just show you all that I'm not the only one who thinks this way. All the way back in 1987, Crash Magazine put Gauntlet and all its various hangers-on side by side to show the scores that each game got on release. Note here that Gauntlet initially got 92%, closely followed by Druid at 90%, and our topic at hand, Ranarama at 90%.
Excuse me, Rose-Tinted Spectrum, 90% is actually less than 92%, so you're wrong, actually.
Those were the initial scores. Note that Gauntlet came out in February of 87, and Ranarama was hot on its heels with a March 1987 release date. Barely any time between them. Crash decided to go back and rescore all their Gauntlet games, and Ranarama went up 2%, while Gauntlet went down 3%. Ranarama, in fact, ended up being the highest scored Gauntlet-style game for the ZX Spectrum at the point they decided to re-review them all. And I agree with them. As someone who grew up spending hours of my life fighting my way through Gauntlet's dungeons, over time I have grown apart from it. The game is light and breezy but has the depth of a potato salad. Ranarama, on the other hand, is a very similar game that changes things up. It's got frogs in it, you get to do a weird word puzzle when you jump on a warlock's face. It's multifaceted, and while I think the Sinclair user blurb is absolute horseshit to read as an advert, they are actually 100% correct. Ranarama is a blast, cast and thinking game, whereas Gauntlet is merely a blast game. Sure, it has the benefit of multiplayer, and the arcade version is still a classic, yes, but pound for pound, I've realised that I'd much rather play as a frog with a hat on than an elf who won't eat chicken with an arrow in it.
Turn the friggin' frogs gay!